Hello and welcome to Unacademy. As part of Hindu analysis today, we will be discussing 7 important articles out of the Hindu newspaper, daily edition. But before we begin, as always, a very important announcement for you. The 29,999 offer is a limited period offer for taking the subscription. If you ever thought taking off the subscription or ever consider us as a part of your journey, this is the right time to take the course. After this, we have 7 very interesting articles. First one about Indian universities and the obsession with rankings. Then an article written by the Italian ambassador in India, quite important, gives us a lot of fodder to write a good answer. Thereafter, Swachh Bharat Mission 2.0. Then there are 4 articles which are small but important. With the coming up of the winter season, now we have standard stubble burning articles coming through, a very short one, interesting that way. Then we have art and culture. There is an update with regards to the classical languages. The cabinet yesterday took 2 to 3 very important decisions. Then 2 new schemes now been pushed into one whole concept itself. And last but not the least, the Chagos island being now, Chagos archipelago being returned back to the Mauritius, you can say archipelago set by the UK, but Diego Garcia still remains with the US and the UK. We will talk about that. So, let's first discuss the aspect of the first article. As always, I will tell you the structure of how this article has been written and what is the whole concept. Now, the article talks about 3 very important things. One is the concept of rankings, specifically what has been given in world rankings. We have a ranking system in India also, which is more or less in a way replicating the world ranking system itself, the QS world rank being the most common one. But it also, we have accreditation process also, for example, NAC accreditation is quite important that way. Then it talks about a certain one-dimensional approach which is being taken because of this ranking and what do we need to do thereafter to improve this situation. Now, this concept, or when we talk about Indian universities and rankings itself, I've been privy to this myself, which is that I've taught in Delhi University for close to 6 to 7 years, and being an assistant professor before joining into this industry, I've seen what this article says, and I would in a way confirm to you the aspect that yes, there is a problem in the Indian university system, specifically when it comes to this obsession with rankings. So, be it any college which I have taught in, from Hindu to LSR to Khalsa to College of Vocational Studies, or the departments which were placed in these colleges itself, or Delhi University itself, there was a certain, you can say, emphasis on rankings and more than that on research papers, and that is where I will now start to build up on this article itself. The first point is, see, universities have 2 major aspects to them. First is research and teaching. Research and teaching, meaning there will be 2 aspects: research, a very important aspect of any university, any college, and the other one is teaching. Now, there should be a balanced approach. The standard argument should be that it should be a balanced approach where these 2 come together to create a good university where the teachers are doing research, the students are doing research, and teaching is also in a way encouraged. However, if you go by any of the ranking systems, and see, ranking systems are important because it gives visibility, it gives funds, it is a matter of prestige. If you go by even NAC or the QS World University Rankings or Times Higher Education World University Rankings, these are the 2 most prestigious ones that way. There is a one-dimensional approach where there are certain points which are allocated for research, and there are certain points which are allocated for teaching related aspects. Now, ironically, there is a mismatch. There is a mismatch wherein the university's research output, meaning how many papers are they publishing, then the impact factor. Impact factor means that today if I write an article, for example, in the EPW and if I write an article in a small journal, the impact factor is going to add to the research ranking. If I am writing in EPW, the impact factor is higher, and if I am writing in a smaller regional journal, the impact factor will be lower. So, impact factor, the number of research papers, further funding and PhD students are things which together add up to create a ranking based on research. And because there is more allocation to research in these points to give you a ranking, university and the UGC and the central government have gone in a certain direction where they are trying to replicate the American model. And the American model that way is a pure capitalistic market competition model, and therefore, if you have ever followed anything related to university research and university administration, you would know that there has been a major shift in the past 5 to 6 years. Now, let me give you the larger perspective. For example, 10 years back, the university, for example, let's take Delhi University. Delhi University used to get, or its constituent colleges, 72 of them, they used to get a UGC grant, and this grant was used in developmental activities, in developing the curriculum, for student welfare, for teacher welfare, but this was a grant in aid, meaning it is a one-time transaction. This grant was given to the UGC by the Ministry of Education, and this was out of the budgetary allocation itself. Now, in this case, neither did DU or the colleges have to worry or had to worry in that regard about money. Funds were not an issue, and therefore, because funds were guaranteed, for them rankings may not be that important, and therefore, there was a teacher centric approach wherein the recruitment process was something which was considered important. Teaching style, teaching indicators, student teacher interaction, teaching quality, all of these things used to matter. The number of students which needed to be part of the PhD program, or be it the fact that you have a certain number which is less than allocated, was all fine. The quality of the student and the quality of the teacher mattered. Now, over the past decade or so, there has been a major shift. So, for example, let us take between 2014 and 2024, there have been fundamental shifts. The first shift is that the Ministry of Education still gets a budgetary grant, but the UGC now does not, in most cases, send grant in aid to universities. They have created the HEFA, which is called Higher Education Financing Agency. Now, the idea was that because grant in aid was limited, the colleges and the Delhi University used to always ask for more money, and there was a limit to that. Now, the idea was we have reduced the percentage of UGC grant to basic scholarship amounts, and now through the HEFA, Delhi University and its colleges can take loans at interest rates which are competitive and lower than the market, and thereafter they can invest in the education and infrastructure of that college. Now, the problem with this model is HEFA will only give you funds if you have a certain ranking, a certain reputation, and further these aspects now dictate the perception of the university and the college, and therefore colleges now started to chase these rankings. What they started to do is they have now started to chase these rankings, and NAC accreditation A plus, A minus, B minus, A, All of these things now start to matter because HEFA funding is going to not happen. It is a very, very condition based loan which is given. Further, because they have a certain, you can say, pressure to pay back the loan, there is commercialization. Further, there is an aspect of competition. This is exactly the model which America follows today. And more than that, you would have seen that there has been a shift away in the way the structure of the education has also been there. Previously, it used to be BA, MA, MPhil, PhD, postdoc. And the idea was bachelor's, do your master's, then do research and get introduced to it through the Master of Philosophy, then do your doctoral studies and then do a postdoc if you need to. Because there was no pressure of number of PhD students, if for example 100 started here, close to 50 reach here and thereafter 20 reach here and then 10 used to reach here and then 5 used to reach here. Meaning in my batch itself, for example, I started in Delhi University batch with 1.5 lakh students. Then by the time I came to my masters, my batch was maximum 2,000, 3,000 students for Department of History, and thereafter by the time I was doing MPhil, it was only 26 students or 30 students, and by the time I was doing PhD or I am doing PhD, it is only a batch of 10 people. So there is a gradation. But if you've seen the changes which UGC has done recently, there is a concept now, do your BA honors, do your masters, straight away PhD. Straight away PhD. And the argument is that we are now making them ready to write dissertations or theses in after MA itself. This is basically to increase the number of PhD students, therefore increasing the ranking. Now you can actually see something in this whole flowchart itself, that what really matters is this ranking. If you don't have the good ranking in the QS world, in NAC accreditation, or even in what the government of India through its ranking, it pushes the NIRF one. If you don't have a good ranking, you will not get good funding. So now the basic problem is that with this type of an approach, where you are chasing rankings, the job of the university and the colleges is to make sure that funding comes in and ranking improves. And when that happens, when you are chasing rankings, you will now start to do more research. And this research is not pure research. What they mean by research is more articles, more emphasis on the teacher writing those articles so that your faculties are producing research. And this is not pure research, the way you think of it in scientific manner. It is all about these published papers and the criteria which has been pushed in through impact factors. And therefore, the universities and the colleges are now more concerned about this. It's a pure private concept. So though Delhi University is a central university, it will get some amount of money from the UGC. Still, it is under pressure because it has to take something from HEFA and then give it back. And this is where the Higher Education Financing Agency has been counterproductive. The argument of the government is, we've given you full autonomy. We are giving you for this aspiration of getting better global ranking. We are giving you on competitive interest rates, repayable loans, and the aspect is we are giving you autonomy, which means also fiscal autonomy. And with financial autonomy, we don't need to pay you anything, and therefore you can now generate and chase your rank. And this is where this whole system is going in the wrong direction. And this is what the article also points out, which is that colleges and universities should not be concerned about funding and ranking. In a country where education already is a privilege and higher education is even bigger privilege, where we need positive discrimination for our students to enter into universities, where we try to keep the fees as low as possible, we don't need more Ashokas in the sense. Ashoka University is a very expensive university, that way wherein the fees are quite competitive, close to 5 to 6 lakhs per semester, if not annual, but it is comparatively much higher than if you had gone to University of Madras, University of Calcutta, University of Delhi, where it would maximum be touching close to 50,000 for a year, or per semester 25-26,000. Yeah, that's exactly the same amount annually. So the idea is that you are creating a certain environment for the teachers, for the administration, and for the university to not think about teaching, but to think about getting funding and ranking. And this is where teaching is taking a hit. And in the present context, a typical university professor is more concerned about writing a paper and generating more and more applications for PhD and getting more PhD students under him. And therefore, now teaching is seen as a distraction to the all important research, which gives the research papers to the university to improve the university ranking itself. And this is where this article is quite true in the way higher education and higher education teaching and the way the space is itself. Recruitment and the way recruitment should happen is not the concern. Teaching quality is not the concern. What is more important is that our faculty should produce more and more research. Now promotion have been linked to it. Promotions have been linked to it. If you don't have a said number of PhD students under you, and if you don't bring in said amount of funding, and if you don't write a said amount of research, papers, then you will not get your promotion. I don't know how many of you it's called API score. It's called an API score. API is the concept of how much you score according to your BA honors, masters, MPhil. Then you get a certain score out of 100. Then you become eligible to actually even sit in the interview. And thereafter, your API score throughout your career has to go up to go from assistant to associate to professor. And therefore, everything is linked to API, either ranking or the concept of funding. So, before we look at the question, let's bring all of this together. How do you use it for UPSC? It's a concept, but needs applicability in UPSC CSE. See, teaching and education sector is a matter of concern for us, obviously. Now, if it is a matter of concern for us, the aspects that universities, how are they governed and what is their administration is important. As of right now, UGC's role is diminishing and the role of the HEFA is increasing. There is what is called an Americanization of the system, where we have introduced market capitalism or the concept of competitive ranking in the university system, which in turn has led to teaching and teaching indicators not being the focus of the universities, but research, artificial research papers, artificial in the sense you just have to write papers, artificial research papers are the matter of concern, which in turn leads to the one-dimensional approach which is being followed right now. Now, how does UPSC ask you a question on this? Like this: chasing rankings, ranks and funds should not be the focus of universities, rather teaching and pedagogy. Comment. Pedagogy is the way you teach. So, this is a question of governance. It's a question of how education is going in a certain direction. It is also a question of how we want to develop our universities further, because loans at a competitive interest rate is still a loan, and therefore debt or credit based development in universities is only going to make it more and more privatized in a way, and therefore the orientation of the universities will change, which in turn will increase the fees of these different universities, and that in turn will impact the accessibility. It's about inclusive development, it's about inclusive growth, it's about the well-being of our students and the students who aspire to become. And see, research is a good thing, but it should not be the only thing which is the focus of a university. Okay, with this, let's move to the next topic, which is written by the ambassador of Italy to India, Bartoli. Why Italy matters to India. Now, this is basically a memo which was created by the ambassador and his staff, and later published into the newspaper. This is rather boasting about Italy and not actually telling us how Italy really matters to India. But it has at least 2 to 3, 4 points which may be relevant for us in the examination when it comes to Indo-Italian relationship. So what we are going to do is we are going to scan it, we are going to condense it, and we are going to take out what is important for us to write a mains answer or give an answer in the prelims examination. Now the first thing which automatically comes out of this article is a term which is open, free, Indo-Mediterranean, which is the aspect that the Mediterranean Ocean Sea and the Indian Ocean, specifically the Arabian Sea, there needs to be a certain cooperation for Italy and India being the two most important, you can say, subcontinental powers and peninsulas in that sector, and therefore the emphasis of this article is to argue that be it piracy, be it what is happening in the Red Sea, be it whatever is happening in Mediterranean, the idea is that Italian and Indian interest is intersecting over free trade in this sector, over and above that no piracy, and more than that, because Italy is a very important exporter in this sector and India is a very important destination of this export, the fact that India and Italy are converging on this is something new in this relationship which previously was not there. Why? Because Italy used to be more EU centric. It was more concerned with the custom union and the EU part of the story, which is how it is internally trading in Europe. But now it is understanding its potentiality as a very important partner in the Mediterranean Sea and India's role in it. For India, it is important because Italy can be an entry point into the EU if Italy is now trying to have a multi-dimensional or at least a holistic approach to its trade profile itself. This is the first aspect which is being talked about. But there are 3 more aspects which we can build upon, which is first the naval dimension of this relationship, which is as of right now there is a lot of cooperation which is happening in India with Italy vis-a-vis how the Italian Navy is aligned with India. In March of 2023, there was an information fusion center of the Indian Ocean region which was created with Italian cooperation, in which a lot of statistics and a lot of information is shared. There is, as of right now, a patrol ship called the ITS Francesco Morsini, which used to patrol and visited Mumbai in August of 2023. So there was a patrolling ship which visited, and Italians do patrol the Arabian Sea. Further, the Italian aircraft carrier, which is ITS Cavour, named after Cavour, who unified Italy itself, and a frigate called the ITS Alpino, are currently in Goa. And further, they are thinking of developing an Italy village as a part of the naval establishment for conferences, exhibitions, and cultural exchanges. So in a way, they are using their navy as a soft power concept, wherein they are sending from time to time multiple ships into the Arabian Sea towards Goa, toward Mazgaon, wherein they are trying to create a certain cooperation. So there is something more than just a Indo-Mediterranean cooperation, but the idea that both navies are trying to work together. Then comes the defense aspect. A defense agreement again was signed last year, and under that they are doing research in industrial cooperation, maritime domain awareness, they are sharing information. But what is more important to you and me is this: the Fincarteri is, and the other one, these are 2 companies which are quite important. The Fincarteri is, as of right now, cooperating with the Kochi shipyard since 2020, and in 2022-23 the cooperation has gone bigger and has become higher. This is because the fact that these are two very important, and the other one is Electronica. These are two very big companies of Italy which are trying to work with our PSUs so as to produce Italian technology here. So, BHEL and the Cochin shipyard both are cooperating with Italian companies in order to become a part of Make in India, and therefore it is quite interesting that Italy, we have Spanish, we have French cooperation in defense zone, but now we have Italian cooperation also. And this is again interesting because both of these producers produce for the EU and NATO, and therefore this could be good technology transfer for us. So, from just not having just the ships here, we also have other intersecting points wherein we have the concept of Fincarteri and Electronica now trying to work with the PSUs of India. Last but not the least is the people to people tie aspect which has been talked about, where the second largest Indian diaspora in the EU is in Italy, and over a long period of time, if you look at the relationship of Italy with India, it's been a reliable economic, defense, and the second largest manufacturing country in Europe, which is now trying to push in more and more investment into India, and this allows for a EU NATO member to become closer to India in the larger perspective. As I said, this article has other aspects also, but that is like boosting the fact that we have this, we have that, we have now started to become part of the European. That is immaterial to us because we have to understand the matters related to India and Italy, because he is trying to show a very rosy picture of the Italian Navy, defense, and the ideas of what we call as how EU perceives Italy itself. But for us, what is more important is what we take out of it. So, I have already done that. I have taken out at least 5 to 6 basic points which can be written in a question like this, that the Indo-Italian relationship goes beyond the economic ties, elucidate. This type of question you cannot answer until and unless you don't have these types of points, or at least this type of fodder to write a good answer like this. So, I hope that you will be able to now add these points into your India-Italy IR discussion or notes, and then your job is done. With this, let us move to the third topic, which is Swachh Bharat Mission 2.0. Now, this is out of text and context. Text and context generally gives you a good bird's eye view of good topics. Now, this topic is about accountability, it's about stock taking, it's about what is the status of a very big mission in which a lot of money has been pushed in. Now, first things first, there are certain terminologies which are talked about. See, Swachh Bharat Mission, we already know 1.0 was about ODF, which is open defecation free status, and ODF status we have achieved quite a lot in that sense, wherein close to you have 4,000 plus villages which now have ODF status, and the aspect is we have to in a way hold on to this ODF status. We cannot have regression, we have to have a certain 4,372 villages have been given ODF status. We have to maintain this. This was the aspect of the Swachh Bharat Mission 1.0, which is ODF status. Now, 2.0 was about something very specific, which is called legacy landfills and dump yards. Legacy landfills and dump sites or dump yards as they are called. Now, what is this legacy landfills and dump yards, and what are the targets of Swachh Bharat Mission 2.0? Now, Swachh Bharat Mission 2.0 time period was 2021 to 2026, 5-year period, and its main emphasis was on legacy landfills and dump yards. We will come to that, what was the target of the mission. Now, what do you mean by a legacy waste dump site or dump yard? If you are in Delhi, you have seen it for sure, in most cities it is there. You have seen the Ghazipur waste mountain, you have seen the Wazirpur waste mountain in Delhi. then you know what a legacy waste dump site is, which is solid waste collected unscientifically in an uncontrolled manner in a certain site for years. Therefore, municipal waste which is generated at 1.5 lakh tons per day, the idea is these landfills and these dump sites were created on the outskirts of the city, but with the cities now becoming bigger and bigger and bigger, they have now become a part of the larger urban landscape, and close to 15,000 acres of prime real estate land is buried under these dump sites, and now they have become a very big issue because of the health impacts which these dump sites have. Just to give you a little bit of visual reference, if you have not seen the Ghazipur mountain, this is basically the Ghazipur waste mountain. You can see it at least from 5 to 6 kilometers away, and the idea is it is as of right now more than 65 meters, is reaching close to 70 meters now, and the Qutub Minar is 73 meters that way, and the allowed height of a dump site of a landfill cannot be more than 15 meters. This is now reaching 65 meters, and it has become a big issue because now this is in the heart of East Delhi, and therefore the methane, carbon dioxide and the gases which are produced because of decomposition of the solid waste is a greenhouse gas emission site and hazard itself, but people because of the methane emission can have vomiting, nausea, loss of coordination. The rag pickers have skin allergies because of it, and further the people who are living just next to it, and you can, if you've been to Delhi, you would know just next to it, 500 meters away from this landfill, there are houses. They are developing tuberculosis, asthma, diabetes, depression, cholera, and a lot of cancer because of this only. This site, if you again follow the news of Delhi specific pollution, and you will see these type of articles in the next 1 month. In the winters, what happens is the plastic catches fire, and then the fire can go on for at least 15 to 20 days, emitting methane and other hazardous chemicals into the atmosphere. And with Delhi already choking because of the smog, this is a new addition to it. This is called a legacy dump site or waste you can say dump yard or landfill. But the idea is very simple. These are unscientific, these are done haphazardly, they were not thought out, and the idea was they were initially outside the city, now they are part of the city itself, and they are a health hazard. Now, where does Swachh Bharat 2.0 come through? The idea is Swachh Bharat Mission 1.0, when it was launched in 2014, was about open defecation free ODF villages. That has been achieved in very good manner, in a very, very well established manner. However, 2.0 when it was brought in, the idea was we will do something about garbage, and the idea was we will talk about garbage free cities, and the target in 2021 was to remove or relocate these landfills. And that is where this article is trying to take a stock, that what has really happened. The idea was 100% source segregation of waste, door-to-door collection, scientific management of waste and waste management, safe disposal through scientific landfills. And the idea was we will remove all these legacy dump sites, legacy because they are done over decades now, and convert them into green zones. And the mission was to now take out these landfills from the city landscape and create new ones in the outskirts or in more scientific zones in that sense. So, Swachh Bharat Mission 1.0 was about ODF. 2.0 is about legacy dump sites which were to be relocated, redeveloped, and the concept of how we will do waste management. Scientific waste management was something which was part of Swachh Bharat Mission 2.0. Now, if we go and check the progress as of right now on the Swachh Bharat Mission website, out of the 2,424 dump sites which were identified by Swachh Bharat Mission 2.0 as problematic dump sites, legacy dump sites. 471 sites have been touched and remediated. However, 727 have not been touched, and 1,226 are work in progress. This means that close to 20% of all dump sites have been actually changed, and more than 30-35% have not been touched only. Further, the area which should have been reclaimed, 27% has been reclaimed, 73% still under these legacy dump sites. When we talk about states' performances, Tamil Nadu has the maximum area reclaimed from dump sites at 42%, which is 837 acres, and Gujarat is the best performing state with close to 75% area of landfills reclaimed, but the area under acreage was lower, that is why it is not the biggest. Now, for you this is immaterial. Because you cannot learn this data. But what you should learn is that the performance is slow and the emphasis was very specific. And therefore, this article is saying that if we go at this rate, we are not meeting anything by 2026. And more than that, what they are reclaiming are smaller landfills, which are not that big a problem in the larger landscape. The bigger landfills in Delhi, in Calcutta, in Mumbai, in you can say major metropolitan cities has still not been touched. And the redevelopment is a separate issue altogether. First is finding a way to reclaim and redevelop, and the other one would be the process of making it green through adding you can say vegetation and other aesthetic aspects of the existence of this whole zone. But the idea is it is not doing its job at the rate it should have been doing, and that is where Swachh Bharat Mission 2.0 is turning out to be a little bit problematic. So therefore, there is a need for accountability. Now, how can UPSC ask you a question? But please do remember this word, legacy waste dump sites. Can sprinkle it in the examination, will get you a little bit of marks. Okay. So the question would be, the progress of Swachh Bharat 2.0 is a matter of concern. Do you agree? Now, if you don't know the difference between 1.0 and 2.0, you can't write this answer. That is where these articles become important, and I hope you will use them and use this article itself to, and you can, what you can do is that out of this PPT itself, take out the basic data, store it in your current affairs repository so that you can use it in the examination if there is a question about Swachh Bharat Mission, or even with regards to waste management and waste disposal. With this, we enter into the zone where we have smaller straightforward articles. The first one is something which is now going to become something as a standard part of our CNA discussion. I've been discussing stubble burning, the issue of air quality index in Delhi, and the way the Supreme Court, the Green Tribunal, the aspect of different agencies, the Central Pollution Control Board, either reprimand, either talk about something, this, that, for the past 2 to 3 years, the same story. Having lived in Delhi itself, this is not a new issue. The upper air circulation in Delhi is such in the months of December, January, February, that the stubble burning in Haryana and Punjab, along with the way all of this smoke and you can say greenhouse gases are added into the atmosphere, it flows towards Delhi, and Delhi will now become a gas chamber with close to 300 to 500 as indicators for PM 2.5 and 10. It is not something new, it is not something out of the box which we are discussing. This is a standard thing. With stubble burning written in the newspaper, if somebody was not told which month they were in Delhi and they just open the newspaper and see stubble burning, you know that you are now entering the winter zone. Before Diwali, this conversation will start. After Diwali, it will show a lot of things, that firecrackers versus stubble burning, and by February, March, the articles are going to start to waver around will start to reduce. However, for at least next 2-3 months, we will discuss this concept for sure. And again, the same story. Supreme Court has criticized the Commission for Air Quality Management on preventing incidents of stubble burning in the NCR area and in Punjab and Haryana. And there is a lot of aspects that you are not serious about this. We have seen the concept of pelletization in a process of taking this stubble and then using it to produce energy. We have this system which is called the SIM system, under which they are trying to recycle the stubble itself. Same remedies, same problems, same solutions will be talked about in the articles. Now we are in the era of stubble burning, and therefore one article on stubble burning for sure will come as a standard process, and then every week at least 2 articles in the editorial. But the problem is, all of this is just one big drama where the Delhi government will say that the central government is not doing anything, the central government will say that the Delhi government is not doing something, Delhi government will say Punjab, Haryana government needs to do something, they will say that previously the different governments were there, now the same government itself is there in Punjab and Delhi, but the idea is they all will do the same drama. So this is in a way inauguration of this phase where we will talk about stubble burning. So let's see the intensity and the volume of articles which come through, but I wanted to give you a heads up that this is going to be a standard thing which is going to be in the news from this point forward. Thereafter, a very, very important development for GS paper 1, art and culture. Now in art and culture there is a thematic which is called classical languages in India. Now this has been a quite contagious issue because the list had not changed for quite a long time, but there had been a committee which had been formed by the government of India, and Marathi was the one which was recommended but not added. So the Union Cabinet yesterday expanded the list of the 6 classical languages, previously Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, Kannada, Sanskrit and Odia, which is all the South Indian languages plus Sanskrit and Odia. Now there has been an addition of Marathi, Bengali, Pali, Prakrit and Assamese, which is quite significant because there are now 5 new additions to the classical languages list. Now your question would be, sir, what are the criteria through which we talk about classical languages? How do you get it? This I have taken out of AIR, so therefore it is exactly what government uses as an indicator, which is the expert committee has the following criteria to give somebody some language a classical language status. High antiquity, which means that at least a history of 1500 to 2000 years, a body of ancient literature which is considered heritage, knowledge of texts and prose in addition to poetry. You should have epigraphical, which is inscriptional evidences also, and there can be a disjuncture between the current and the old language itself, for example old Tamil and Tamil. Previously we had the following, now we have Marathi, Pali, Prakrit, Assamese and Bengali in this list. Now there are 2 issues which the article does not talk about and nothing has been talked about by the Union Cabinet itself, which is under what criteria were these 5 added is not talked about. There was a Twitter or X you can say post from the Prime Minister, and then the respective CMs also congratulated themselves about the fact that it has been added, but the specificities of it have not been talked about. Why have they been added or under what criteria? More than that, there is also a very big grey area in this, where is it and or we do not know, which is, does a language have to in a way qualify under one or all, or either one or all of them, or either 2? They do not talk about that, meaning is it 1 plus 2, or you have to meet all the criteria, or you have to meet only one criteria. Because if we talk about Pali Prakrit, it is okay. These are languages which are produced modern, post-modern period, okay. Marathi, Assamese, Bengali are still early medieval languages, and therefore high antiquity 1500 to 2000 years has not happened only. That is not the timeline in which we are working only. So some other criteria has been used, but that criteria is not talked about. So therein lies a grey area, a discussion which we need to have and which we should have, and maybe a further article either in the Indian Express or the Hindu is going to tell us that what were the criteria which were used to tell us. But this is a standard prelims based question. You cannot get this wrong, have to learn it. So now we have total 11, we had 6 already, 5 now have been added. So Tamil, Telugu, Kannada, Malayalam, Odia, Sanskrit, Marathi, Pali, Prakrit, Assamese and Bengali. Though Assamese and Bengali actually come out of the same Abhahata language which was produced during the what we call as the Palas, and therefore the time period of Assamese and Bengali is the same. Maithili, Assamese, Bengali have the same ancestor in the process of Abhahata. A Pala based, which is 900 C, is seen as the development phase of these languages in that sense. So let's see if we have further confirmation about this. What do you get, or what does the language get if it gets the concept of classical language? The idea is that the Education Ministry will provide 2 excellence awards, 2 major annual international awards for scholars. You can get a center for excellence in central universities. UGC can give you grants to create a chair for it. Further, now preservation, documentation and the digitization of ancient text in these languages will get an impetus, which will create at least some form of jobs in archiving, translation, publishing and digital media. But this is again a half cooked news. We need to know the criterias like we have for the others. Let's see how this develops further. But a pure article on the concept of Marathi, the 5 languages being added, and a standard question in prelims can be now expected. Now, last but not the least is the story of a decolonization of a small island archipelago, the Chagos archipelagos or the Chagos Islands. Now, I could have easily said that UK has now agreed to give back Mauritius the Chagos Islands, and Diego Garcia, which is in the Pacific itself, in the Indian Ocean itself, the Chagos Islands, there's a small, the Chagos Islands is a UK based dispute. Diego Garcia is a dispute where the US is also involved, because it is a joint naval base of, or you can say a strategic defense base of US and the UK in the Chagos Islands itself, and is important for them to operate in the Indian Ocean itself. Now, rather than just saying that it has been now given back to Mauritius, it would be in a way interesting to see the history of this island. Now, the history of this island is actually related to the process of colonization, but also Napoleon. See, the original inhabitants of the Chagos Islands or the Chagos Islands is the slaves which were taken from Africa to work on the coconut plantations in this area, where they used to produce copra, and it was originally a French island. Thereafter, once slave trade was abolished by 1813, 1815 period, Indian indentured labor was taken to Chagos Island quite a lot. Indentured labor would be temporary bondage based, 5 year you work for that person for the in a way of a debt bondage. Now, in 1814, after the Napoleonic War started in 1806, 1804, 5, 6, and from 6 to 14, once Napoleon was removed or was in a way abdicated as the emperor of what we call as France, or the Republic of France, the idea was that in the Congress of Vienna, through which the Metternich order was also brought in, Britain took away the Chagos Islands from the French. They gave the Mauritius sector and the Chagos Islands to themselves, which is Mauritius and Chagos both became British colonies rather than French colonies. However, since the process of decolonization started after the Second World War and India also got independence in 1947, the Chagos Island has remained and was a disputed, you can say, island between Mauritius, which always used to claim once it got independence that we are an independent country. In 1968, it will become an independent country, but the British Indian Ocean Territory, the BIOT Chagos Islands, will remain with the British, and Diego Garcia will remain with the British. So, in 1968, what happens is Mauritius becomes an independent country, getting independence from the British, but Chagos Island remained as an occupied territory of the British in Mauritius. And therefore, since 1968, in the different lower courts, then the UN court itself, there have been multiple claims by Mauritius that this is an illegal occupation, specifically Diego Garcia. And over the past, you can say 4 decades, a lot of pressure has been created on Britain to give back these islands to Mauritius. And therein lies this historic change wherein now the English have agreed to give back the Chagos Islands to Mauritius. However, Diego Garcia will still remain with the UK, therefore the US also. And the idea is India has welcomed this because this may be seen as a beginning of the process of decolonization of these islands which still the French and the British hold in the Indian Ocean or the Pacific. And this is the need of the hour, and this in a way tells you that the process of decolonization is still happening. So therefore, Diego Garcia still remains the concept of a US-UK joint base. However, Chagos archipelago issue is now over with the you can say transfer of these islands from Britain to Mauritius itself. So before I end this session, there are 2 to 3 very important terms we've learned today, and that should be considered and that should be learned properly. First is the concept of legacy, landfills or dump sites. Second, the process of accreditation and research and teaching and the vicious circle in which our universities are caught up. Third aspect is Swachh Bharat Mission 2.0 and its emphasis. Fourth is the concept of Diego Garcia and Chagos Island. And you also need to make sure that the Italy article, you are able to use the data or at least the rhetorical points for an Indo-Italian question. So with this, I would like to end the session. Remember, the questions will be posted on Telegram, and there is also something called the SIP, the Success in Prelims, tomorrow, which is Saturday at 8 p.m. on the Unacademy platform. The link is given in the description box. On the Unacademy platform, this week's weekly test will be uploaded. You should know one thing, for the past 3 weeks we are running this program, and there are already 3 weeks worth of at least 90, 100 questions, close to 100 questions are waiting for you in the SIP, and I hope that you will integrate this into your schedule so that you are able to attempt 1 week's worth of current affairs through the questions. A rank is also given. It is a proper interactive, proper examination based, principles based a test which happens on our platform. So I hope that you will become a part of the SIP and you will give it tomorrow also. So thank you so much. I will see you soon with another set of issues. Take care. Bye-bye.